For a few hours on a Wednesday afternoon, the most powerful accounts on the internet all said the same thing. Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Kanye West, Apple, Uber, all of them, at once, posting the exact same message. Send Bitcoin, get double back. A gift to the world, they said. Millions of people saw it. Some believed it, and within minutes, money started moving. Real money. Into a wallet nobody could trace back to a name. The people who did this weren't a nation-state. They weren't a criminal syndicate with years of planning. One of them was 17 years old, working from a bedroom in Tampa, Florida. This is the story of the day. A teenager broke into the back end of one of the most powerful platforms on Earth and nearly broke the internet's trust in verified accounts forever. Graham Ivan Clark wasn't your typical hacker. He didn't grow up dreaming about cybersecurity conferences or ethical disclosure programs. He grew up inside a very specific, very strange corner of the internet, a marketplace, not for drugs, not for stolen credit cards, for usernames, short ones, rare ones, the kind of handle that's just one word or a single letter on a major platform. To most people, a username is nothing. To this community, a handle like @y or @dark could sell for thousands of dollars. Clark went by Kirk. By his mid-teens, he'd become known in this world for something specific, not for owning rare usernames, for getting them, through social engineering, convincing customer support representatives over the phone to hand over access to accounts that weren't his. It's a simple technique. In theory, sound confident. Know just enough real information to seem legitimate. Create urgency. Make the person on the other end want to help you, fast, before they think too hard about whether they should. The community Clark grew up in had its own rules, its own reputation system, its own economy. Members bragged openly about successful social engineering attempts. They traded techniques the same way they traded usernames. What worked on which company? Which phrases made a support agent suspicious? Which ones made them relax? For a teenager spending hours a day inside forums like this, it wasn't really seen as hacking in the dramatic sense. It felt more like a game, a puzzle with a real-world payout. Clark got good at it. Really good. Good enough that other people in the username trading community started paying him to break into accounts for them. By 2020, he wasn't just trading handles anymore. He was running a service. And that service was about to find its way somewhere much bigger than a stolen username. In the middle of 2020, the world had shifted. Offices closed. Companies sent employees home. Twitter was no exception. Its support staff, the people with access to powerful internal tools, were now working remotely, logging into company systems from their own homes. That shift created an opening. Not a technical vulnerability in the traditional sense, a human one. Clark and two collaborators began targeting Twitter employees directly. Not through the platform, through the phone. They called, posing as Twitter's own IT department, reporting a fake problem with the company's VPN. They asked employees to log into a fake login page designed to look identical to Twitter's real internal portal. Some employees didn't fall for it. A few did. And once they did, Clark and his collaborators had something extraordinarily valuable: access credentials to Twitter's internal administrative tools. The tools support staff used to reset passwords, verify identities, and in rare cases, directly access account settings from the back end, sometimes called informally, inside the company, God mode, because from there, you could see almost anything and change almost anything. Reset the email tied to an account, bypass two-factor authentication entirely, post directly from an account without ever knowing its original password. To an outsider, it sounds like the kind of access that should require multiple layers of approval, oversight, alarms. In reality, at the time, a relatively small number of support employees could reach tools this powerful simply by logging into the right internal dashboard. At first, Clark and his crew used this access the way they always had, selling stolen usernames on the underground market, handles worth a few hundred, sometimes a few $1,000s each. Quiet, contained, profitable enough. But then someone had a bigger idea. Why sell one username at a time when you could access the accounts of the most followed, most trusted people on the entire platform? On the 15th of July, 2020, the plan went live. One by one, verified accounts started acting strangely. Bill Gates tweeted asking for Bitcoin, promising to send back double. Then Elon Musk. Then Kanye West. Then Barack Obama. Then Joe Biden, in the middle of a presidential campaign. Then major corporate accounts. Apple. Uber. Each message nearly identical. Send an amount of Bitcoin to this address. Receive double back. As a way of giving back to the community during a difficult year. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't sophisticated malware or an elaborate cover story. It relied on one simple thing: trust. If Elon Musk tweets it, people assume it's real. If Barack Obama's verified account says it, why would you question it? Screenshots spread even faster than the original tweets. People refreshing their feeds in disbelief, wondering if accounts had simply been deleted and recreated by someone pretending to be Musk or Gates as a joke. Journalists scrambled to confirm what was happening in real time, unsure at first whether this was an isolated prank or something far larger. Cybersecurity researchers, watching the patterns spread across dozens of unrelated accounts within minutes, recognized almost immediately that this wasn't a coincidence and wasn't limited to just one or two hijacked profiles. Within minutes, transactions started pouring into the Bitcoin address. Small amounts, mostly $100 here, a few hundred there. People testing whether the promise was real, hoping to double their money in an instant. It wasn't real. The Bitcoin never came back. But by the time anyone realized what was happening, the damage was already spreading fast. Twitter's security team scrambled. For a company built entirely around the idea of live, real-time information, the response had to be almost as fast as the attack itself. Engineers made an unprecedented decision. They temporarily locked down every verified account on the platform. All of them. Millions of accounts, silenced at once, unable to tweet, unable to reset passwords, unable to do anything, until the company could figure out exactly how deep the breach went. For a few surreal hours, some of the most powerful voices on the internet went completely silent, not because they chose to, because Twitter itself had taken away their ability to speak. By the time the dust settled, more than 130 high-profile accounts had been compromised. Over 400 separate Bitcoin transactions had gone through. The total haul came to roughly $118,000. Not a fortune by the standards of major cybercrime. Spread across 400 victims, most losses were small individually. $100 sent in hope, never seen again. For some victims, it wasn't about the amount at all. It was the realization that they'd been fooled by something wearing the face of people they trusted, on a platform they used every single day. But the financial damage was almost beside the point. What mattered more was what the hack revealed. If a small group of people, including a teenager, could access the internal admin tools of one of the most influential platforms on Earth, what else could they have done? Posted false information about a public health emergency, sent fake messages about a market crash. Or, with the US presidential election just months away, posted something in a candidate's name capable of shifting headlines, markets, even votes, before anyone could confirm whether it was real. The Bitcoin scam wasn't the nightmare scenario, it was a preview of one. Investigators moved almost immediately. The FBI, the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, and the US Secret Service all opened parallel investigations within hours. Tracing Bitcoin transactions isn't as anonymous as people assume. Every transaction is permanently recorded on a public ledger. Investigators followed the money through multiple wallets, watching where the funds eventually tried to cash out. At the same time, investigators dug through the username trading community Clark had been part of for years. Old handles, old chat logs, old boasts, made long before anyone imagined this would end with a Twitter hack seen by millions. The same community that had once celebrated Clark's skill at social engineering now became the evidence trail that led investigators directly to him. People who had worked with him, bought stolen usernames from him, or simply chatted with him online were interviewed one by one. Some cooperated. Some didn't realize how much they'd already given away in old messages that were never meant to be read by federal investigators. Digital forensics teams cross-referenced IP addresses, device fingerprints, and account metadata tied to the fake VPN login page used in the phone scam. Piece by piece, 3 names emerged. Graham Ivan Clark, 17, in Tampa, Florida. Mason Shepard, 19, based in the United Kingdom, known online as Chaywan. Nima Fazeli, 22, in Orlando, Florida, known online as Rolex. Within weeks of the hack, all three were arrested. Clark's arrest happened quietly, at his home in Tampa. No dramatic standoff, no chase. Just federal and local investigators showing up at the door of a 17-year-old who, until a few weeks earlier, had been best known in a tiny online community for trading rare usernames. Because of his age, Clark's case took an unusual path. Under Florida law, minors can, in certain serious fraud cases, be charged as adults. Prosecutors in Florida chose to do exactly that. 30 felony charges: organized fraud, communications fraud, fraudulent use of personal identification, unauthorized access to computer systems. If convicted as an adult on all counts, Clark could have faced decades in prison. Shepard and Fazili, both adults, were charged federally with conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, and unauthorized access to a protected computer. The case immediately raised uncomfortable questions. Should a 17-year-old face the same system and the same potential sentence as an adult mastermind of organized cybercrime? Legal experts pointed out that Florida's approach to trying certain minors as adults was already controversial long before this case. Advocates for Clark argued that treating a teenager this way ignored the very real differences in judgment, impulse control, and long-term consequence awareness that exist between a 17-year-old and a fully formed adult. Prosecutors countered that the scale of the crime and the real financial and reputational damage it caused hundreds of victims and one of the world's largest platforms left little room for leniency based on age alone. The debate went well beyond Clark's individual case. It touched a much older, much broader question about how the justice system should handle young people with extraordinary technical ability and comparatively little life experience to understand the full weight of what they were doing. Some cybersecurity professionals publicly noted an uncomfortable pattern. Several of the industry's most respected security researchers had, as teenagers, done things that were technically illegal before eventually being hired, mentored, or redirected toward legitimate careers. The difference, in Clark's case, was scale, visibility, and timing. A hack this public, this close to a national election, left almost no room for a quiet second chance. For months, the case moved slowly through Florida's court system. Eventually, in March 2021, Clark reached a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to the charges against him. Under the agreement, as a youthful offender, Clark was sentenced to 3 years in a juvenile facility, followed by 3 years of probation once he turned 18. Not the decades some had initially speculated about. Not the outcome many expected when the story first broke either. Shepard, in the United Kingdom, later pleaded guilty in the United States to related federal charges and was sentenced to time served plus probation, having already spent time in custody. Fazili pleaded guilty to conspiracy and computer intrusion charges and received a sentence that similarly avoided extended prison time. None of the three ended up serving anything close to the maximum penalties initially on the table. For a hack that briefly silenced some of the most powerful accounts in the world and raised genuine national security concerns just months before a presidential election, the eventual consequences felt, to many observers, strikingly small. Victims' advocates pointed out that the people who lost money in the scam received no restitution guarantees as part of the plea agreements. Some of the 400 people who sent Bitcoin that day never saw any of it returned and never received formal notice about whether they ever would. For them, the case closing quietly, years later, brought little real resolution. Twitter's internal response didn't end with the arrests. The company overhauled how employees accessed sensitive administrative tools, new restrictions, new monitoring for unusual internal activity, new training specifically designed to help employees recognize social engineering attempts like the fake VPN call that started the entire breach. Congress held hearings. Twitter executives were asked directly how a handful of phone calls managed to bypass security measures the company had spent years and millions of dollars building. The company's stock dipped in the days following the breach, as investors weighed the reputational damage against the platform's core promise that a verified checkmark meant something real. Security researchers wrote extensively about what they called the platform's dangerously centralized internal access model, where a small number of support employees could, in theory, take control of nearly any account on the service. State election officials also weighed in publicly, noting how close this incident came to a scenario with far graver consequences. A single false tweet from a presidential candidate's verified account, timed carefully in the final months of a campaign, could have caused confusion or panic no correction could fully undo before the damage spread. The bigger lesson extended well beyond one platform. Companies across the tech industry quietly reviewed their own internal access controls that same year, worried they had similar single points of failure hiding somewhere inside their own support systems. Because the truth the Twitter hack exposed wasn't really about Bitcoin, or even about the specific celebrities and politicians whose accounts were compromised for an afternoon. It was about how fragile trust really is, once you understand how it's built. An entire platform's credibility, the thing that makes a blue checkmark mean something, rested on the judgment of individual support employees answering phone calls during a global pandemic, most of them working from home for the first time in their careers. One convincing phone call was enough to bypass all of it. No advanced malware, no zero-day exploit. Just a teenager who'd spent years learning exactly what to say and exactly how to say it to make a stranger on the other end of a phone line want to help. Today, the July 2020 Twitter hack is studied not as a story about sophisticated hacking. It's studied as a story about human trust and how quickly it can be exploited by someone patient enough and convincing enough to ask the right person the right question at exactly the right moment. Graham Clark didn't need to break any code. He needed someone to believe he was who he said he was for about 90 seconds on a phone call. That's all it took to briefly hijack the voice of a former president, the world's richest man, and dozens of others, all at once, in front of millions of people. In the years since, similar phishing attacks have hit other major companies using nearly identical techniques. Fake IT calls, fake login pages, employees working remotely, isolated from the colleagues who might otherwise have caught the deception in person. The tools change. The core weakness rarely does. So the question worth sitting with isn't really about Bitcoin or Twitter, or even about how young Clark was when he did it. It's this: if trust itself is the weakest link in almost every major platform we use, how many other God mode tools are sitting quietly right now, one convincing phone call away from being handed to a stranger? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want to see how the next digital crime case unfolds, subscribe, because sometimes the most dangerous hack in the world doesn't require a single line of code, just a phone, a believable story, and someone on the other end willing to listen.